Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you use any kind of prescription medications and you pay a lot for those medications, please go watch the video that I put out earlier today because you may learn something that you don't know on how to save money on your prescription medications. I'm not talking about $2 or $3, and no, it's not a sponsored video or anything like that. I just put that video out because I want to help those people out that maybe don't know about this company to go there. Other than that, these are 12 shortages in food items or food products that will continue through 2023, in my opinion, and beyond. Bread, ladies and gentlemen. Why? In my opinion, it's because mostly of input costs. Right now, there is enough food in the world. However, inflation, the supply system, labor costs, input costs are really high. But let's read what they have to say here. And here they say, with no end in sight to the 2022 war between the big R and the big U, for which they account of 20% of global cereal grain production, many bakeries and factories may struggle to obtain the necessary ingredients to make bread, leading to a potential shortage in 2023. I believe that there is going to be a shortage, but not a shortage of actual substance, but a shortage due to the extreme high prices. I believe, I'll put this out there right now, I believe that towards the end of 2023, we may be seeing some actual shortages where there's just scarcity, where there's just not as much as there used to be, and where companies are shrinking the brands that they offer. So for example, you can go to the store now and decide to get one of any 50 or 60 brands of bread, but here towards the end of 2023, I think that the brands are going to shrink. It may still be available, just not in that much quantity, but also at an elevated price due to input costs, due to scarcity, supply and demand, and due to inflation, ladies and gentlemen. So stock up on your flour now and learn how to make your own bread. It's not that hard, and it can be a lot of fun, especially if you have kids to help you. I know vegetable oil is the devil. However, a lot of people in the world depend on vegetable oils, and if vegetable oils or seed oils are not available, what do you think they're going to turn to? Even though it's going to be more expensive for them, they still need the oil. So they're going to turn to other oils that maybe you are consuming. And what's going to happen to that? It's going to go up in price as well. Given the area's outsized global contribution, here we go again. The big R and the big U's conflict may substantially reduce the availability of sunflower oil seed products, including vegetable oils. A concurrent palm oil shortage in Indonesia, which briefly banned the export of palm oil in April of 2022, has not helped matters any. Since Indonesia is the world's leading producer of palm oil, any ongoing supply issues only compound the potential problem of vegetable oil availability in 2023. And again, ladies and gentlemen, when you hear that a shortage on this item, let's name it item A, is going to occur, it doesn't mean that because you don't use that item that it's not going to affect the prices of the things that you use that are similar to that item. Because again, let's say for example there's a shortage of fish worldwide. Well, there's a lot of customs, a lot of people that actually depend on eating fish for their protein. Well, they may turn to pork since there's no fish available, and therefore the price of pork will then go up because there's more of a demand, right? So that's how you have to think about these things, because even though you don't use some of these products, it will affect you eventually, at least in your pocketbook. Corn, ladies and gentlemen, corn is used in almost everything, even in our gas tanks, thanks to Uncle Sam. Well, here they say that less corn was planted in 2022 than the year before, according to the USDA. A smaller batch of planted crops means a smaller overall yield, which could potentially lead to a corn shortage in 2023. Here they're not mentioning, and I'll see if they mention it later on, but they're not mentioning the shortage of fertilizer and the very high prices of fertilizer because of the war on fossil fuels. They fail to mention that here, but I digress. They go on to say the smaller batch of corn crops doesn't necessarily guarantee that corn-based products will disappear from the shelves next year. But as one agriculture investor told Successful Farming in 2022, the reduced corn harvest does unfortunately mean, guess what it means, ladies and gentlemen? that the world will be facing relatively high food prices for an extended period of time. One more optimistic note, agricultural policy experts at the University of Missouri published a 2022 study predicting that the price of corn will eventually fall, as all things do. It's just a cycle, ladies and gentlemen. However, I believe that this cycle is going to last a little longer than the ones that we've been used to in our past 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 generations now. However, the analysis does little to help consumers in 2023, as the overall drop in costs isn't expected to occur until next year, 2024. At the earliest, let's go ahead and push it all the way till 2032, ladies and gentlemen. That is what I am predicting, that 2032 will be the year that things really start to change, but we're going to go through a lot of suffering between now and then, in the form of scarcity, in the form of inflation, in the form, unfortunately, of tyranny. And I'm sure that we all know about the butter. You can see that butter prices have really escalated here in this last year. I mean, at Costco alone, the butter prices, they almost doubled really in 1 year. So that's pretty crazy. But here they say that between lower than expected milk production at many U.S. dairy farms and a sustained labor shortage at many of those same farms, the stock of cold stored butter has diminished to its lowest level since 2017. Now, when we see that there's going to be a shortage of candies or a specific candies, we're like, we can live without it. But I try to take a look and see why is there going to be a shortage. And it says here that the main forces behind the supply chain issues leading to ingredient scarcity haven't been entirely resolved. Now, do you see that the supply chain issues that we've had in the past 2 years, do you think they're getting better? Or do you think that they're like on the knife's edge, right? Meaning that any little thing can push it to one side or another. Look at how big of an impact the price of diesel, the shortage of diesel that we had last year, affected our supply chain. Maybe not affected it in front of our face, but it definitely affected it where we felt it in our pocketbooks. And the more that things cost, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you have to remember, is that the less you're going to get of it with the same time worked. So all of these things that happen that affect the price of goods, foods, whatever it is that you need in order to sustain your standard of living, the higher in price they go, which people think of that as inflation, but in reality, it is just a symptom of inflation. The higher that prices go, the more hours that you have to work to get those same things. Another one that when I initially looked at, I was like, it's champagne. I don't even drink champagne. Who cares? But why is it that champagne may be in shortage this year in 2023? Where here it says a rash of extreme weather that year resulted in a devastating number of crops growing fungus, leading to a smaller than average crop yield. Now, from what I understand, that makes for better champagne when you have a stressed fruit to work with as the starting product. However, this is why there's going to be a shortage of champagne, because of the weather. Now, if the weather can affect this crop, do you think maybe that it can affect the wheat crop, the coffee crop, the corn crop, soybean crop, etc., etc.? I'm pretty sure that it can. And that is why we prepare, ladies and gentlemen. That is why we prepare. And this, what I'm talking to you about right now, this article that we're skimming through right now, this is what I like to call actionable intelligence. If you look at these items that we're talking about on this video, and you're like, man, I really like champagne. Well, you better go and stock up on champagne, right? I really like Hershey's, chocolate kisses. Well, then go stock up on them. I do believe that it's important that we have comfort foods in our preps. It's very important. And you probably all know that with the droughts that's going on in California and in the western part of the nation, that we're having a shortage of tomatoes. I've definitely noticed the price of tomatoes really go up, and unfortunately the quality go down a little bit. Here we usually just buy our tomatoes from Costco, but the last batch that we bought wasn't the best. Here they say that in 2021, more than a third of U.S. vegetables were grown in the state of California, along with 75% of the nation's fruits and nuts. So those of you that think that what's happening in California is not going to affect your dinner table, well, here you go. A drought there is apt to have a disproportionate effect on the rest of the nation's food supply. And they're saying here, blame the extended drought devastating California. I've talked about this in previous videos, that right now in the United States, especially the mid to western part of the United States, they're facing a drought that is a drought as severe as one that we had about 1,200 years ago. They're calling it a 1,200-year mega drought, and that's exactly what it is. And all of this rain that California's been getting and the West Coast has been getting, it's really not going to help too much, because when you've gone through drought for a very long time, the ground becomes hard, almost like concrete. And then when it rains really hard on top of that ground, it's almost like rain falling on concrete or asphalt. It doesn't really soak into the ground, but it makes a mess, and it just creates flash floods, which of course is very dangerous. And I do believe that there have been a few fatalities reported from the West Coast due to those flash floods. Again, flour. And again, I'm sure they're going to blame it on the war between the big R and the big U. Since nearly 1/5 of the world's cereal grain is grown in the big U and the big R, there's going to be a shortage of flour. But you can just see the prices going up, especially here in the United States, because we do grow a pretty good amount of wheat. However, those countries that are not growing what they need in order to feed their people, they're going to be importing flour. And guess what the manufacturers are going to be doing here? They're going to be looking for the highest dollar signs that they can find as far as selling flour or wheat. So they're going to go ahead and sell it to those people that are paying the most, meaning that prices is going to go up for us. The increasingly detrimental impact of climate change, ladies and gentlemen, of course it's climate change, may have led to a reduction in the crop yields as well as it has done in the past. So we can also blame climate change, which I agree 100%. The climate is always changing. We all know that beef is on the butcher's chopping block, unfortunately not in a good way. It's important to remember that a shortage of particular food doesn't automatically mean that the food won't be available for purchase. Absolutely not. It's just going to be in shortage for those people that can't afford it. Many times consumers will notice a shortage upon experiencing sticker shock at their local supermarket. Unfortunately, the widespread instances of skyrocketing prices on basic food items isn't likely to change much in 2023, particularly when it comes to beef. And pretty much, ladies and gentlemen, any product that come in aluminum cans, it's going to probably get more expensive, not because of the product in it per se, but because we do have a shortage in aluminum, being that China is hoarding about 20% of the world's aluminum and not letting it go, being that in the EU, a lot of aluminum smelting plants have closed down because the energy prices are so high. Then there's going to be a shortage in aluminum, and we are going to feel it at the grocery store when we try to buy products that are in aluminum cans or cans that are lined with aluminum. It's the same thing for like beer or sodas or things like that that come in aluminum cans. Farm-grown produce between climate change and a world fertilizer shortage. Boy, that climate change is really wreaking a lot of havoc, right? I'm not sure, but I think that vegetables like really nice warm weather. But I'm not a farmer, okay? But at least here they mention a worldwide fertilizer shortage, and trust me, that fertilizer shortage is not because of climate change. It's a man-made disaster that the world will pay for in the next coming years, especially those nations that are really poor. All right, the culprit for the world's severe lack of fertilizer, like many other potential supply shortages issues facing us in the 2023, is easy to identify. And guess who it is? The big U and the big R, ladies and gentlemen. They are the culprits to all of our problems. So if you have a problem at home that you can't fix, just blame it on the big U and the big R, and I'm sure that everything will be better. Well, not really. Sorry, you have to be a little facetious now and then. And of course, I think we talked about this here, about beer. There may be a beer shortage, not necessarily because of the products that you need in order to make the beer, but because of the aluminum. Here it says an impending 2023 beer shortage is due to the decreased supply of also carbon dioxide. I forgot about carbon dioxide, so good point on there. And again, why is there a supply issue with carbon dioxide? Blame it on your government. No matter what country you live in, I'm sure they had something to do with it. And I'm not being facetious there. They really did. Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you got something out of this. Go stock up. Don't stop prepping if you're prepping. If you're not prepping, start prepping. All right? And if you're all prepped, fill in the gaps and stack it to the rafters, because in my humble opinion, we are going to need our preps. It's not a matter of, oh, we'll just rotate it. That's great. That's what I do. I rotate my preps. But we are going to eventually need our preps. When? I don't know. Maybe next year. Maybe the year after that. Maybe this year. Maybe tomorrow. That's why you're prepared. because that way you don't have to guess when it's going to happen. Because when it does, you will have it. And everyone that didn't prepare, unfortunately, they will be standing at a line, ladies and gentlemen, asking a government official to give them a loaf of bread. And what makes me wonder is what they're going to have to give up for that loaf of bread. Have a great day. God bless every one of you. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to every one of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out. God bless America.